All right. We have everybody here. Everybody's present and mostly accounted for. So super excited to have you all here. Once again, my name is Mark Moyer, and you are in the Club Room, part of the Win Again Academy series of events. And today is an amazing topic because all of a sudden the NCAA and others are sort of freeing up the reins that used to hold young athletes from being able to really earn money on their name, image, and likeness, but also current and retired athletes sometimes struggle figuring out the best way to really benefit from, again, their NIL and really expanding their branding and marketing. So we have three fabulous and fantastic and super knowledgeable former professional athletes joining us today to talk about all that. First and foremost, I'm going to go through a couple of quick intros and then bring these gentlemen into the room one at a time. But right off the bat, I'm going to start with Jerome Williams. And Jerome, and by the way, if I skip stuff in your intros, guys, you can fill it in or not fill it in. It's up to you. But I'm just going to hit a couple little highlights. But Jerome went to high school in Maryland. He went to a very small and insignificant college at Georgetown University. I'm not really familiar with it, but it's a small school somewhere. I'm joking. They rejected me. So I'm a little bitter from that. But Georgetown University, he was drafted number 26 in the draft. That's pretty damn cool. He ended up playing for 4 teams. Let's see, make sure I got this right. The Pistons, the Raptors, the Bulls, and the New York Knicks, playing in the world's most famous arena. He was part of Basketball Without Borders. He is now founder and CEO of Alumni Pro Global Sports. We're going to hear all about that. But Jerome, why don't you come on into the room, and I'm going to keep on introducing the rest. Ulish, a lot of cool things today. Really an impressive young man. And I say young man because he's younger than me, but pretty much almost everybody's starting to be younger than me. But he's from Connecticut, West Haven, attended Michigan State, and was signed by, I think it was the Falcons, but they ended up on the Steelers. And then they shipped him off to Europe because they said, son, you need European food. And he said, well, okay, sure, I'd love to go there. But then he won their World Championship, the World Bowl, which is pretty damn cool. Came back, earned himself a Super Bowl ring with the Steelers. That's also pretty damn cool. But he's involved with a lot of charitable things. He's involved with ministries and church stuff and all kinds of things, but also is a very avid entrepreneur. He's got a company called, and I'm going to get this wrong, oh no, Spartan Network Partners, I think, but we're going to get that right in a second if I didn't get that right. I hope I didn't blow that, Jerome. But anyway, Ulish, come on in. Thank you. I feel like it's like The Price is Right. Come on down. Anyway, and then lastly, but not leastly, Doug Lee. And Doug Lee attended Texas A&M and Purdue, drafted into the NBA, played for the Nets and the Sacramento Kings. He co-founded ProSource, and he's I'm going to tell you about this company. It's really impressive what they do with the logos and all kinds of things that you can order all your swag with. And I'm looking around for swag that I've got, and I don't have it handy. Anyway, and according to his Wikipedia, so I'm going to give him some crap about this. It says, Doug has a superlative design sense. So Doug, we're going to have to make sure you show that off. He's been a color commentator all over the place. And right now, one of the companies he's passionate about is Legends in Technology. But all these gentlemen are very keen on, of course, Alumni Pro Global Sports. So Doug, come on in. Here we go. I'm inviting him in. I hope I did okay with those intros.
That's good.
Those were good intros. I like them.
Yeah.
Oh, good output, Mark. You did great. So we, as former athletes, I think I think we've enjoyed the business world at times even more, haven't we, guys? I don't know. It's really been a joy to meet so many different people through what we're doing. So we're excited to be here today.
Superb. Well, gentlemen, listen, before I get into the stuff that I really want to talk about, NIL, the big thing that I'm very passionate about and what I do a lot of work in is really helping athletes with their transition from their sport to what's next. And because in my opinion, and I'm sure you may all concur, a lot of times, virtually every athlete goes through some challenges when they leave their sport. They're sort of back in front of their, they're back at home, they're on the couch, and they're kind of saying, well, what am I going to do next? And sometimes it's sort of the loss of the daily routine. It's the loss of the physical aspect. It's the loss of the mental, being like in the game and all that kind of thing. It's also the loss of your sort of second family, the team and the locker room. But do me a favor, and I'm going to ask each of you maybe one at a time to just give me a quick, like 1 to 2 minute maximum sort of version of what your experience was leaving the game and leading to where you are now. So Jerome, I'll start with you.
Well, I think you just touched on the psychology of it all, Mark, because it does touch on a multiple level of things, from mental health to, stress management to skill development lost. I was in Doug's office last week, and he was telling me about a story of, him being in the gym a few years back when he was trying to retrain kids about his form shooting. And it's like he was saying, Jerome, it's like riding a bike, because once you start shooting again and he gets his touch back, right, he was shooting shots like Steph and Del Curry, just, leaving the gym and turning around on them. But that's part of the psychology, because when you become a retired player, I remember going to the gym and the gym sort of like, man, like, is he going to actually play? I'm at the local Y after I just stepped off the court of the New York Knicks. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to get a run. And, it's like that, post, PSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm sitting there like, well, I don't want to go into full on junkyard dog mode. Like, I can't I got to contain that Ulish Booker in me, like, that can just, be overwhelming. I have to, settle down and, look at my performance and make sure I don't get injured, because there is no one here to help me get up off this floor. So, yes, there's a physical, there's a mental, there's all these things that are wrapped in it. And I was blessed enough to just be able to go out there and play if I felt like it. And a lot of other athletes might not do that based on injuries they had at the end. So, yes, I'll just touch on that one small thing before we even get into anything else. It's a psychology, it's a psychological thing that players deal with the minute they become retired.
Excellent. All right, Ulish, will make us laugh now. Come on.
But
in all seriousness, it's funny. They always say 100% of athletes, retire, right? I mean, there's no way around it. But I think every athlete goes into it where they sort of, it's almost like the thing they don't want to look at, right? They're like, no, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to leave. I'm never going to retire. And their mind is always on plan A. Plan A is to wake up that morning and train to be the best at your sport and to continue playing. But there does come a point where, whether it's injury or your performance or other reasons, financial, whatever it might be, that you have to stop playing. Tell me a little bit about your situation. At what point did you realize it was time, and how did you transition? What was your first year or two out like?
So for me, as a undrafted free agent, I came in, I signed with the Atlanta Falcons. My agent at the time, he had got jammed up, if you will, from taking his fees out of another player's signing bonus. So he was already battling the league, unbeknownst to me. And so here I am, playing my heart out, thinking, and not getting any information from him, because, once you make it to the league, it's like, nobody tells you anything. It's like you put your head down, you go to work, and, the coach likes you, he likes you. If he don't, he don't. I mean, but nobody tells you that at that point in time. So at any rate, I got cut. And so, off again, on again, off again. So my experience is a little different. But nonetheless, the transition, it was, I knew at a certain point in time that, listen, that acronym NFL, you hear people say it, not for long, you start kind of figuring it out. So I was in the league, out for a year, and then back in, and then I had the little Cinderella story where, Pittsburgh signed me. They sent me to the NFL Europe, the whole thing. And so I would say for me, the transition, we're all believers on here. And so my dad is a pastor, and I grew up in church most of my life. And so I was a relatively pretty good kid. And so from that standpoint, my family was kind of the nucleus that kind of held me together, because in Division I sports, you take the plane everywhere, you got training table, everything is catered to you. In the league, it's the same way. And so when you're out, it's like, you go from, the White House to the outhouse. And so, that whole psychological piece. And then if you haven't made a significant amount of money and you're trying to figure out all in one span, you're trying to make the team, you're trying to make the little bit of money that you have count and extend you, because you're accustomed to this level of living. And so I would say, number one, God, number two, my family. I had a decent landing compared to a lot of other guys that don't have the resource or didn't have the resources that I had as it pertained to my family. And just I got my degree while I was in school. I didn't say, you know what, I'm a party, and then I can always come back. I said, nah, I'm too far away from home, to roll the dice. Let me get this while I'm here. And so as far as transitioning, having that circle, that inner circle, it helped me land properly. And then everything else, I just took all the intangibles that, from football and the adversity, and just transitioned it into civilianhood. And so I'm here.
Isn't that amazing?
Here with these guys.
Isn't that amazing? You call it civilian life. Like it's the same thing. I mean, look, a lot of what you gentlemen have gone through is very similar to what our military goes through when they leave the service and they come into, they'll say civilian life. And there's very similar challenges. So I really appreciate that. That's great insight, Ulish. So Doug, how about yourself?
Well, I'll tell you first, the 1, 2, and 3 there, Ulish mentioned. I mean, I came to faith in the Lord, and, I always tell people when they'll listen that, I think a lot of athletes, and you'll see a lot of this, and they say they come to faith in Christ and so forth. I think there is a level, if we're all honest, that, I came from a very small town in Illinois, less than 10,000 people, the first person to ever play professional sports out of our town and so forth. And you kind of get everything in the world thrown at you. So you kind of get a chance to dabble into some things you shouldn't dabble into. Some of the rumors are true, that happens. And I think I've been blessed to have a wife of 36 years has been very patient with me. But, I think people, you go and you find out so many things are empty out there that you find other things to try to fill your life up with. And that's how a lot of players and a lot of athletes, it's for real. They come to the Lord and understand that, all the other things didn't make you happy, and I think I just want to mention that first and foremost. I also, like Ulish, you didn't know we similarly had this, but I was the 35th pick, which actually was the first pick of the Rockets that year, and had a 2-year guaranteed agreement altogether to play the Twin Towers. And my agent was more experienced in the football realm than he was basketball, and screwed up my whole deal. And I was basically with them for a year to non-active. And so I went from this kind of stardom type of thing to where, hey, I'm not making any money. And I really early on got in with people to learn from them. I've always been a quick learner, blessed young great kids. You either fight for, as I always say, either fight for the chicken on the table you don't eat, and so that's for real. And so I think working that work ethic, growing up and so forth. And I mention this because, walking the fields of tasseling corn when you're 8 years old, 9 years old, and walking beans and doing these type of things, you learn these work ethic. I think that's, I kind of want to mention because it works in the transition. The most shocking thing to me is I became president of a public company by the grace of God in my later 30s after I retired from sports, basically on my work ethic and just, willing to get it done in the sales side. And so the board had voted me in to do that. I really wasn't ready to do that. But I will mention this, and for everybody in here listening, for an athlete, the most, I think, and all athletes can relate to this, when I got into business, I'm not gullible, but if I had a dime for every person that came in and told me they were a gazillionaire and done something with companies and all these things, that was a hard adjustment for me, because when you played sports, you were not even going to be on the floor for a tryout unless you had a certain skill level. But in business, I found anybody can walk in your door and tell you any story they made up. And that was hard. That was hard in that transition of who to trust, to really discern through it. And then once, like these guys here as athletes, all of us apply what we did in sports and our training into the business world, right? It works, and we are, as we always say in basketball, we're always good as our last jump shot, and we live that, and we're going to perform and do the things. I'm honored to be with these guys and be able to partner with these guys, along with Jared and Pablo. They're here in my room that you can't see here because of the camera angle, but those maybe step in here in a little bit. But I think it's important that everyone here that's listening understand we're passionate about what we do. We are very, very passionate. We value other people's money above our own. When we're going out there fundraising, we want to do everything with integrity. And I think that what Mark just kind of addressed, that's been the hardest the transition for me, still learning over the years. I get more people to walk in and, they hear retired athlete, which that whole phrase is just wrong, right? Because that somehow signifies to somebody that you're crazy wealthy, right? And I made more money overseas than I ever did in the NBA. I took a pay cut every year in the NBA waiting for somebody to get hurt. And the reality of it is, though, it's hard because people hear that. So you have that stigma right away of that you're wealthy, right? But one thing I will say, and I'm going to be a little partial to former athletes here, you take a business person that was a former athlete and you get behind him and so forth and support him in the right ways we're coachable, and we learn and we do it and we do it well, and we use our platform humbly, but we use it the right way. And that's what we're doing here and building for our whole passion with kids. So I know Jerome's going to get into that. So I appreciate it, just that opportunity again.
Oh, that's great. So gentlemen, this is, I really appreciate all your insight here. So I think really one of the things that I want to start jumping into, well, wait, before I do that, if anybody at all has a question for any of these gentlemen or myself, there's on the far right, you'll see it says chat, participants, and Q&A. Go ahead and put your question in the Q&A section. And also type in there if you want me to bring you in to ask the question directly, or if you'd rather just me ask it myself. So ask your question and then let me know if you want to be brought into the room or not necessarily. Anyways, so Jerome, tell me a little bit more about sort of what's going on with NIL right now. What is, I know the NCAA is not necessarily completely embraced it. They're really struggling with it a little bit. I know that Emmert says some things one day and other things another day, and other people. But from your perspective, do you think that this is a sort of a tidal wave that's going to keep on going? And I know it's on a state-by-state basis. Is that correct? How they're freeing it up, or how's that all work?
Well, as of right now, the cycle continues, as these former athletes that are on the screen right now, Doug and Ulish, they've talked about the possibilities of changing the rules and what those mandates will look like for the past few years now. As of right now, there was supposed to be a decision in January. Well, then that was delayed. And these delays come with no further notice as to when that delay will stop. And for athletes, especially the football players and the basketball players, as being the two strongest monetized sports in the NCAA as of today, for the minority communities, this is very disheartening, because we have for years tried to help minority athletes with their name, image, and likeness education. And for so long, these things have been swept under the rug. So Alumni Pros Global Sports is here to help not only educate the athlete, but the families. Because if you can help educate the athletes, the families, then you can also change a community. And that's when we really start to move the pendulum of where athletes are able to go back into those communities and change their environments. For years and decades, we've seen athlete after athlete make it out of their surroundings. And we consider Doug, also a minority too, because he's part Indian. And I'll let him talk to you about that. But we consider Doug a brother. He's just a little light skinned. But it's these communities that Doug spoke about that Ulish speaks about, that a lot of us who have gone on to participate in professional sports speak about, and we then try to then go back to these communities and uplift and change and put programs within. But the institutions no longer support us after we have left a mark on those institutions. And that is something that is directly connected to your name, image, and likeness. When you came on the screen, you said, you know, I have a guest here. He played at a college you might not have known about, you know, small school called Georgetown. Well, everybody has an image, you know, whether it's Patrick Ewing, you know, cutting down the nets, whether it's Alonzo Mourning and Dikembe being the Twin Towers, whether it's, you know, other, man, geez, got to turn that off. Sorry. Got people coming to the door. That's that ringtone right there. Dog pounds knocking. But outside of that, you know, you have Allen Iverson and myself and other images of different players from that particular school and location. That's the name, image, and likeness. And intellectual properties for these players who go on to play professional sports, and some that do not, still have value, right? And we have to educate the next generation of this value before they come in, because now with rules changing and things being loosened, the NCAA, I feel, has figured out that the reasoning behind, you know, whether you are in violation or not in violation is really, you know, capitalized by an ecosystem that is controlled by the institutions themselves. And with that being said, it makes it hard for the athletes ever to ultimately change their scenario, because these institutions are in control. And with that control, also is there's a lot of things that are not being taken advantage of, because when an athlete cannot choose his or her major, that's a major problem. Why are they called student athletes? They are in fact employees if they can't use that same opportunity as a scholarship that's being offered to the student athlete to become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a software developer. These are the types of jobs that are monetized heavily in society. But because of Ulish Booker playing on, you know, Saturdays and having to prepare during the week, he might not be able to, you know, be fit into those same classes that someone who is coming to the school to pay, or Jerome Williams or Doug Lee, you know, and so on and so forth. So those are the kind of things that we're talking about within the name, image, and likeness and intellectual property. That Alumni Pros Global Sports is on a mission to assist student athletes, assist current athletes monetize and optimize their branding through education, through you know, services. That's all approved by the rules that are put in place.
Well, and that's fantastic. So, and I'll let any of you answer this question coming up here, but you know, I think that the public's viewpoint is that really the top players are the ones that are able to monetize, and I think a lot of them don't realize that their daughter who may play soccer at Stanford University, or their son who's a swimmer at somewhere. I mean, it might be Jimmy's Pizza who wants their son who's one of the top swimmers at, let's say, wherever it is, Michigan or something. I don't know if Michigan's a big swimming school, but anyway, Florida or somewhere. That every student athlete can make some form of you know, financial windfall, right? I mean, how's that work?
Yeah, I can address a little bit of that. I think I just want to kind of come back off, because we've had resistance from some people that say, well, a student athlete, first I want to address, gets a scholarship. What Jerome had said, I wanted to do sports medicine. And I was told, hey, Doug, if you weren't a starter, you'd be okay. You'd have time to be able to do sports medicine, but you're a starter, so you don't get to do that, right? And I said architecture. That was my second one. Sorry, night courses, you can't do that. And so there's this part where people think you're getting this education, and so then I went into general business. Yeah, you could do that. Okay. And so I kind of wanted to get that out there. We also have the issues changing the NCAA, and I'm not here to bash them. I would in an open forum probably with them here even, but the reality is that, you know, we have players on our team that came from, I was always fortunate to have a roof over my head, even though there might be 6 of us in one bedroom at one time. You know, there's players that came that didn't have dress shoes, you know, and it's an NCAA violation to buy dress shoes. We've changed a lot, right, as this goes through. But I think that I wanted to mention that part of it. Now, the marketability on a campus, just take Georgetown. If Jerome Williams walks in, or an athlete, whether he's 1 through 15, walks into a restaurant on a consistent basis, we have documents and data that show that that business goes up, right? Those are things that are real, right? Even right now today, if I take Jerome, who's you know, still well known in a lot of areas, and I go to a local pizza place, you mentioned a pizza place, and I go here and say Jerome's going to come here, you know, once a week with his family, or be able to do that, they will pay for that, right? We're identifying a lot of these things, so it doesn't take to have to be the top athlete. For me right now, I'm 56 years old, right? Been done playing for a long time. I still have, by the grace of God, marketability at Purdue, marketability within my hometown and other cities that I've lived in. And even retired players don't get that. I was talking to Julie earlier, and representing players and active players and so forth in one of the chat rooms and one of the tables. And I'm sure she could tell you, you know, it's tough because a lot of these players do not understand how that works. So if you start them early, now you start taking, you know, Jerome, Ulish, a lot of players that have developed their, you know, all of us together developing our speaking skills and all these things, and you help them at a younger age do that, guess what? They become more marketable, right? So we want to see every player benefit from that. And yes, my wife and I are very passionate, because we believe that minority players for far too long have been taken advantage of, and you know, that's a fact. And I think that, you know, we want to change that player by player, school by school, and we're going to continue to put pressure upon the NCAA with a lot of people to make sure, you know, to give you kind of an idea, just back in 1987, you know, our university made, because we're ranked top 5 in the country, you know, they're not making $1 million from television rights. They're making tens of $millions back then.
Yeah.
And so we are going to, you know, make sure that the players are educated. And when I say that, a lot of our players are already getting good educations and so forth. And I don't always want to sit here and say, hey, they don't have good families, because a lot of the players do. But we do have a passion, though, to take some of those players and that haven't had as much of a chance as well, and teach them. Because I believe, just like I said earlier, if you get that drive that they have, and you just teach them business and education and be able to go through, I honestly, and one of the parts, and I just got, when I call Holy Spirit goosebumps when I said this, is to help them grow their own corporations. And if we can be part of that in the future, it will change places. Derek Coleman in Detroit, you know, redoing a whole city block and putting in stores and all those things. And he'll get bashed as, you know, a dumb athlete, because, you know, the city of Detroit, you know, he invested all his money in Detroit. It's a great place to invest his money. But that's what we're wanting to see, is then go back into the neighborhoods and empower to go back and be the change, you know. And so that's part of why we're so passionate. So Ulish, I'll let you pick up from here.
You're muted, by the way.
You're muted.
Yeah, that's all right.
One of the things that really intrigued me about being able to team up with Jerome and Doug is, you know, being able to actually help athletes understand and maximize their opportunities from their college experience. And Mark, you made a point. Well, how does my daughter on the swimming team, you know, how does she maximize? How does she make money from being, you know, on the swimming team? Well, I'll tell you this. A lot of us, you know, we spent time talking to kids in elementary schools, and one of the first things that they want to do, they want to either be an athlete or an entertainer. And so you never know what that little one, you know, has going on in their mind, and what goals they want to achieve. And it may be that swimmer or that baseball player or that bocce. I don't know if they even have bocce in college or whatever, but whoever it is, there's an opportunity. And that's one of the things that I really like about Alumni Pro Global Sports is that there's so many different pieces that we're creating opportunities for everybody, and just not for basketball or football. You know, everybody. If you go to a Division I school, 2 or 3 school, that school is maximizing your likeness in that local community. So, in some type of capacity, if your name is on that roster, or you wear a jersey, or you wear or represent those schools' colors, it's an opportunity for a particular player. So, you know, to add on to what what Doug was, what you asked, Mark, I think that's one of the things that really, and I may be getting ahead of myself, but that's one of the things that really excites me about Alumni Pro Sports is that we've done this already on every level that there is, and so we know, we know what it is to be at school, and one thing I learned in college, and I learned that. When I go out, there's the things, the want and needs test. Do I want this or do I need it? You know what? Let me put this money back in my pocket. You know what I mean? So, Alumni Pro Sports, I think gives an opportunity and a level playing field for all sports.
Now, I think that and that sounds great. Thank you. That was fantastic. Now, all of a sudden, I'm seeing anyway out there, people that are calling themselves NIL experts. And it's almost like it's a feeding frenzy once again, right? And, first of all, agents were super excited. Then pretty much anybody with sort of any knowledge of anything is saying, oh my God, now I can really glom onto these athletes, even in high school and middle school, and start working that angle. Give me a couple of things, a couple pieces of advice on what you might give, whether it's a parent or a spouse or a family member, in a way to protect some of these actually kids. And also, I mean, look, it also extends into retired players, but what are some of the things that people should look for when they're trying to get some advice here?
Well, the number one thing that student athletes need to be looking at is compliance. Rules of engagement, whether you're in business or in school. The rules of engagement it can help or hinder you in this world of athletics and sports, and especially when you talk about the dollars that are at stake for professional athletes. So being within compliance is the first rule. So they have to continue with their same form of due diligence that they've gone into getting that Division I scholarship, right? So if Division I scholarship is the epitome of trying to move to the next tier of professional sports, they have to remain in compliance. So having said that, the NCAA rules are very important to deal with whatever service providers are, whether it's attributed or connected to the NCAA or approved by the NCAA. Those are the kind of things you want to search out first,
okay.
Because those are the things that are going to keep you in the right realm under the correct rules. Alumni Pros Global Sports is positioned to be within that compliance. We will have a compliance controller that deals directly with the NCAA and ruling and having to make sure that any student athlete receiving any of our services that we provide is under those guidelines. One thing I can tell you, companies like ProSource with Doug, compliance, and his wife, Becky Lee, is the person in charge, and she's taking all prisoners. She's going to make sure things are done correctly and done to the right levels of everything that need to be handled. So that's the main thing I would point out about that for any family, any student athlete. Doug, you want to touch?
Yeah, I think the thing is, and thanks, she's right. I've learned to surrender to my wife's leadership, and when it comes to this, this is, I guess, a little knock on men, but women are the best multitaskers, so don't try to act like we are. But the reality is too, Jerome, what he touched on, I think your question mark is interesting because it sounds simple, but these agencies that I work with, and a lot of them, if anybody was on the line, again, I'm going to be transparent, right? These buildings and these office buildings and everything that have been built and representing athletes, right? You're not going to see that from Alumni Pros Global Sports. We have all done well in our own companies by the grace of God. We're not sitting there having to have this athlete to have a salary. That's not the position that we're in. We're doing it out of passion to help. There is monetary gain from it, there's no doubt. But we're not going to go in and build these, 30-story buildings and agencies that are going to be that way. It's not necessary. And we believe it's a wave of the future. Yes, it is a feeding frenzy, Mark, but education is the key. Education is the key. When you can get a parent to say no to, $1 million offer, $5 million offer, because you can show them how that really should be totally different if you controlled your own name, image, and likeness. That's what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to take our 21 years in branding and expertise and back that through Legends in Technology and Alumni Pros to bring that forward to monetize these things. But I think it's education, right? But these agents, just like the NCAA for a long, long time, and I'm not saying all of them, don't get me wrong, all right?
Yeah.
But I would say by far majority, right? They built their lives upon the backs of athletes, and from a percentage perspective, which we want to turn that upside down, right? We're going to flip the switch, is that we will make less than what we're doing, and the athlete's going to make more, and that's guaranteed. And I say that very strongly. That is our whole passion of why we're here, is to be able to do that. So we're going to educate and put out there. Right now, we've been getting that from some agencies. Why don't you work with us, right? We're already getting phone calls from major agencies, and I'm not going to mention them, but I'm going to tell you the top 5 agencies that I've spoke to just in the last few weeks. Doug, why wouldn't you join our team? Why wouldn't you do this? Come on, we'll pay you X. That's the whole point of why we're not doing that, right? Because Jerome knows I do these large multi-million-dollar deals for athletes, and so at the end of the day, I want to keep that money at home with the families, and so they can decide, right? They can employ hardworking relatives and these things that they want to do, and that's why you see here I choose to wear my zip up and my shorts every day. I don't have to wear the suits anymore, and I've learned that that's what we want to do with our athletes. We want to empower them. There's nothing wrong with suits, but I think we want to empower them to control their own brands. And when I see people like Ulish and Jerome and other people that we have on our advisory staff, they're so passionate about this. Some big name people you'll see as we go about. We're not name droppers, but we have support from a lot of big name players that just said this is long overdue. And what's better than to have players for players, right? Because when you have a guy representing you who's never stepped on a field or never stepped on a court, hey, we can all hire attorneys, right? But at the end of the day, to passionately help them build companies is what we want to do. So education, I'd say, is in the forefront.
That's great. Ulish? Yeah, go ahead.
And I'd say that there's a saying that I like to use: you measure twice and you cut once. You don't go get an aviation mechanic to help you plant corn or tobacco. You go get a farmer. That's his expertise. I'm excited because we've all been there. We've all done it, from the recruiting element of it to, Division I and to pro sports. We've all been there. We've all done it, and we've all made it out by the grace of God. With our minds, if you will. Now, granted, I've been hitting the head a few thousand more times than Doug and Jerome, but outside of that, we've made it. And so I would just say that, just take take your time, and you want to talk to, the people that have done it. We've been there. We've done it from every level. And so we, from the sports side of it, now in the business world, and understand that, hey, there's a lot of money left on the table, in our time period. As I look at, my nephew, he's coming up in this time period, and it's, 20 years ago, I would have never thought about being able to maximize and capitalize on my intellectual likeness. First of all, what is it? Second of all, you always hear, well, you guys should be glad, you're getting scholarships. Well, as you go on and you peruse the training table and the athletic, the training room, you find out that the boosters pay for those scholarships. Yeah. And if you dig a little further, you get charged out-of-state fees. And so, hey, listen, at the end of the day, people, and I love the band. The band is excellent, but people are coming to see the product on the field and the court. And so it's important that in this time period, it's new for everybody, and it will be new for everybody, and that it's important to take your time and get the education, get the information, and talk to the people that know, because we have everyone's best interest at heart.
Before I answer and bring in a couple of people to ask some questions in a minute, it's funny, when I first heard intellectual property, I was thinking, there's no property in my intellect right now. It's none available for rent, man. There's nothing going on there. But I used to wonder, what does that mean? But now I very much, I've learned a few lessons along the way, and I definitely know what that means. But with that said, though, I think that I know lots of athletes who are completely convinced that they should be incredibly marketable. But then I know others who are so, whether it's humble or especially veterans too, you see this military, very, very humble, and don't really like to talk about their prior success on the field, and they off rink, etc. And they don't necessarily realize how that's costing them lots of money. And they could actually be leveraging some of that prior, their athletic career to a great advantage. So I'd love to hear just any of you give a little bit of advice to that athlete out there who may have had a career. Maybe it wasn't, maybe he or she was sort of second string on something, or not a big name, or not a big sport necessarily, but what can they do? Just a couple things that they can do to really increase their returns on that.
I'll go first, Jerome, if that's okay. As an undrafted free agent, and just kind of, finding my way of making it, I would say, to that guy, because a lot of times, most things you got, in the NFL, it's 3 years, 3 games, and you're vested, and in this sport, it's this and it's that. So if you're not vested, it's like, but at the end of the day, put all that stuff aside. We've been conditioned for so long. As a college athlete, you're forbidden to even take a candy bar from somebody. And so put those things aside and just be confident in who you are, and just understand that it's a new opportunity. It's new, it's different, you know what I mean? And just be confident in who you are, and don't worry about the fact that, hey, I was, number 99 on the 100-man roster. Listen, there's no I in team. You know what I mean? It's that guy that's number 99 that might help me as a starter get through my day. You know what I mean? So we all have talents and attributes to bring to the table. And so, don't just be yourself and walk into the new opportunity.
Take that candy bar.
That's it.
Take that candy bar. Go ahead, Jerome. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say, coming from an area where I was a student athlete who went without any scholarship offers, not even Division III, and having to walk the road of getting a job and paying for my education the first 2.5 years of school, I would say to that student athlete that, your passion and your love of the game that you choose is going to be ultimately your driving force. Because to Doug's point, all of those things that I had to learn prior to getting to Georgetown helped me get to Georgetown. Working, networking, figuring out where I wanted to go play to seek out the best talent in a town called Washington, D.C., metropolitan DMV, Maryland, and Virginia. And these things are all related to all athletes, no matter if you're, like you said, high profile or low profile. Seeking out internships and understanding, where another door closes, another one opens. Being persistent. And I really admire those athletes who don't get spoon fed, right? Don't get the free gear and don't get the, I think what's his name said it best. He said Jerome Williams wasn't America's guest. He wasn't traveled around and given all the things, because when that doesn't happen, you train differently. You learn more. You put in more time and effort, because at any given moment that those things can disappear. So I think really those athletes are at a better advantage, because they are able to gain from not having. And a short thing I can tell you is that having to buy my own shoes to support the game, right? And then going to a school where I had we wore the first Jordan 11s ever produced on the court, not knowing what a training table was. I remember the first 2-3 weeks of practice, and they were telling me, why haven't you been to the training table after practice? And I was like, well, what is that? And I go to the training table, and I'm like, I've been missing this for 3 weeks. What in the world is going on? Like, there's a lot of stuff I got to know. But as a person who grew up in the struggle, who was a student athlete that did not have all these perks, I everything was very valued. Everything was seen as, wow, I can go into the bookstore and I don't have to choose a book that I can't afford. I can get every book on a professor's list. Whereas before, when I was paying for it, I had to choose, could I get enough out of this workbook to be able, because I couldn't afford the full binder, right? Which books can I, get from the library? So a lot of research had to be done on my end. Could I get a used book? Like these are things that certain student athletes don't ever have to think about if you're high profile. But to your point, Mark, what do I say to those athletes? I say keep grinding, because that grind is going to create even more value for yourself than you could ever imagine. The drive it's going to take. I remember when I got my first internship at Georgetown University, and I was working in the summers for Arthur Andersen accounting firm. And yes, was that something I could choose between that or politician's office? Absolutely, going to that school. But I showed up every day 30 minutes early, and I stayed late, and I became a tax clerk. And guess what? At the end of that summer job, I had a job offer on the table as a tax clerk for one of the largest accounting firms in the United States, just starting off at $50,000, $60,000. And, from a kid that, grew up where in my neighborhood, that was going to be life changing, but it all came from the grind. So I want those same student athletes to understand, if you don't have the perks, you're better for it, because you're going to go out and go to work when it's time to go to work. Doug, send us home on that.
Yeah, no, Mark, let's say I'm realizing we all, as athletes, I think a lot of us as business people today, we share a commonality. And, you said Texas A&M to Purdue. I was one of the top players, the freshman and sophomore at Texas A&M, and I got hurt my 7th game in my sophomore season. Got a screw put in my foot. My whole world came crashing down. Coaches came and talked to me and said, we don't know how you're going to come back from this. This could be something that affects you the rest of your career. And they really lost faith in my ability to play. And I realized, like, wait a minute, I was courted and landed in a helicopter in the 50-yard line of Kyle Field and Texas A&M, and nothing against the university whatsoever, but yeah, I knew what the training table was there. But the reality is, I go from this small town to that's stripped away, and I had to fight to prove who I was, to then get to Purdue, to where everybody thinks is a cakewalk, and because we're ranked where we were and all that. But I worked hard. I had to work in the off seasons to gain back my strength and do these type of things. And you see people just leave you, right? Like literally like, hey, you know, top sophomores in the Southwest Conference, you're hurt, forget about it. Right. I mean, literally, it was like they didn't even mention my name. It's like, oh, he's over there getting, and I don't know if he's ever going to come back from this. You know, I started hearing all this and I was like, wait, you know, and I said, I'm going to transfer. They're like, oh, no, you're getting better. I'm like, no, I'm going because you lost faith in me. I think when we've learned that, we're very resilient. And that's our leadership staff, along with, you know, I want to hear when we get to Legends and Technology, I do want to bring Pablo and Jared in a little bit. We talk about the technologies behind this, because we've been so blessed to partner with other people. When Jerome said that intern, here's the thing we teach athletes, and you say, how do they capitalize, right? Right now, and I say this with all humbleness, okay? I can get into almost any board meeting in the country because what? I have an MBA behind my name. But once you step through that, you have to be able to back it up from a business perspective.
Right.
And I know all that basketball money I had is gone. And I never made, like everybody else, was very thankful. The first time I held a $100,000 check, I didn't know what to do, right? But the reality of it is, in business, I've made far more money than I ever have. And that's what I want to teach young people. Like, this is just an opportunity for you to take that and learn and listen. You know, I have 56 years old. I have more people approach me in business today that have never learned that lesson, right? They're still chasing, when we're trying to find and build, to educate and say, hey, you can build a legacy for life, for your family. And you don't have to be, you know, Michael Jordan. All right. And that's what we're excited about doing. So I want to get in. I'm kind of, this is awesome. I want to get a little bit of some of the technologies too. We have backing a lot of this up because, you know, yes, we're all passionate and so forth, but I don't know if we're going to do that in this forum, Mark, if we have time to do that, or.
Maybe what we can do is do a repeat event of this where we really focus on that stuff, because look, we are running a little bit long because this has been amazing. You guys are all fantastic. And I just want to tackle a couple of these questions. So maybe in the next couple of weeks, Doug, we bring that aspect back in, if that's okay with you.
That'd be great, because we have a whole digital wallet system, a whole thing that goes into colleges for
cool
programs and stuff, web stores and bookstores and all those things we have, and software development that we have in play, you know, that's active. So we're excited about talking about how we're going to utilize that technology.
Well, let's definitely do that. So a couple of quick things. Number one, I'm just going to bounce in and ask a couple of questions that are in here just to get them cranking along. So Val Whiting she wants to know, is the NIL retroactive? I'm not sure what that, I mean, I don't know what that really means.
I think maybe we're addressing, if it goes back to name, image, and likeness, and getting, I'm trying to scroll up to kind of find this here. I don't know if they can answer this after I say this, but are they talking about going back and getting some of this revenue back for the players that have already gone through? Is that the question?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Okay, so the answer to that is probably not. You know, I mean, unless current players step up within collective bargaining agreements and say, we're going to take care of former athletes, which is one of our goals as well, and what we give to, you know, is retired athletes. And this is not just basketball. You have coach basketball and football. It's all sports, right? But I think that this is, you know, there are some proposals that we do want to do for former athletes and so forth with NCAA. Whether that stuff will ever go through, we're not holding our breath on that. So we're just going to take who's out there and educate them as they're going forward. And hopefully, I mean, we've been, you know, blessed to be able to help other former athletes. And that's what we want to raise up. We want to raise up people that want to take care of the people that were before them and help to be able to do that. But I'm not holding my breath that any of these leagues are going to be writing big checks soon. I know, you know, Jerome, you're more on the inside of that. So, you know, maybe we will see some, but we're fighters. So we're going to kind of move forward with what we have.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, look, do you, so a follow-up question to that is, do you think that NIL will influence more or less students to leave school early? In other words, do you think the pro leagues will change their eligibility rule in response to that? You know, the one and done and that sort of thing.
Well, I think that'll definitely change the scope, because as of right now, the NCAA for college basketball and college football with some major conferences have actually worked as a minor league to the NFL and the NBA. unfortunately, the athletes have not been compensated, and this is a cycle that just has gone on to continue. Now, the minute that we are able to monetize our name, image, and likeness, that will change the dynamics, because a student athlete who is enjoying his college experience, who is able to go to class, who is able to be a star in his town, is less likely to force his way out of that scenario, given the fact that his ecosystem and his family benefits from that very infrastructure that he chose at a very young age, right? He knows that the possibility of the NBA or NFL will always be there, but because there's something being deposited into his bank account, helps him make that decision to stay. Because a lot of minority influential athletes are being taken from areas where there is low economic status, there are not very many resources, and the only way out is to go and sign for professional sports, is the reason why people leave early. So that would be the very same reason that people choose to stay, and stay where they're comfortable, and stay where, their mom and dad or family member can watch them play and succeed and thrive, versus, to Ulish's point, NFL, not for long. NBA, what are some of the acronyms for NBA? No boys allowed. That's what we used to, So, so I definitely see that they will definitely be wanting to stay longer, if you ask me.
And Mark, let me add to that. We've got to take into account the whole social justice movement that kind of has catapulted. And a lot of these young guys are, they ain't going for what me and Jerome went for, me and Doug went for. And so I think that they will end up forcing, if the NCAA is smart and the powers that be are smart, I think they will be proactive versus reactive, because these kids are in tune. They're watching a lot of their decision making from a recruitment standpoint. Looking at the ownership and, what do they believe and what's their stance on certain things. And so, they are very keen on what's going on. And so the last thing you want is a bunch of rebellious 2.0 kids in the 21st century saying that, hey, look, there was an article that came out in like the Cleveland Journal or whatever, and they had this payment structure for Ohio State athletes. I think like a 5-star guy would get like $650,000. Somebody underneath that's like $550, $450, $350. So the more these types of things come out, and the more these things right here are like the gift and the curse. Everything is right there, and so I would definitely say you got to add in the social justice piece of it. And these kids are a lot more on top of, hey, the SEC made, for football, they made $500 million, a year or two ago just in football. And so, these guys are like, well, where's my cut?
Yeah.
They wasn't there when I had to, at 2:00 in the morning when I was hungry. I couldn't go to, training, you know what I mean? So definitely I would say keep an eye on these kids kind of forcing the issue.
That's great. All right. So I'm going to bring Max into the room because he has a special question that he just wants to jump in and ask. So I'm going to let him come in and do that real quick. So Max, why don't you come on in and fire away your question, but let's keep it a little brief if possible.
Yep. I'll keep it brief. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your stories. Former collegiate athlete here, played at the University of Pacific basketball. I just wanted to ask you, looking at where each of you are now as former athletes turned to now business professionals, what is the one piece of advice that you wish you got then that you'd give your younger self to now the next generation of young athletes making that same transition?
I would find a Doug Lee and a Pro Source ASAP Rocky. What would I do with that? I would go in and I would sit down with Doug and his staff. Ryan, shout out. Miss Becky, shout out. I would sit down with their staff and I would allow them to just talk with me and consult with me, because they could help me formulate a brand and an image that I could then own immediately. And those thoughts could then grow. Like, you could start with one thing and then that could just layer on top of another and another and another. But before you know it, you have branded yourself, right? So the one thing that I learned from the NBA specifically, in the NBA, early in the 80s, almost everybody had a nickname. Nicknames were huge, but you couldn't name yourself. You had to be named by a veteran or the team or the fans, for that matter. And once that happened and you accepted that branding, well, that started to give you some layers, right? So when I talk about what would I do differently to my younger self, I would tell my younger self, figure out what it is that, makes me who I am. When I was in college, they used to call me, the college kids would come to signs with Jerome Williams on it saying, the next Dennis Rodman, hustle and this and that, right? And I'd say to myself, oh, that's pretty cool. But I never thought about how to brand it. Never thought about what did that look like for me. So to have a company like Alumni Pros, who has, utilized and partnered with partners such as Doug Lee and his company Pro Source and Legends in Technology, where we can take an IP score and turn it into some value and intrinsic value that then the athlete can go and monetize, is huge. And that's what I would tell my younger self. I'd say, brand yourself, brand what you're doing, brand, who you are as a professional, as an athlete within my space.
Yeah, Jerome, I'm just going to shout real quick, Max. I want to keep it short. Is that exactly what Jerome said? I actually, if you want to know the story in business, I actually volunteered a company that I was here and I was rehabbing an injury to go back over to Italy, and I landed in Vegas on a pro team. You have to look it up. It's like a trivia question, right? Before the G League. And I met a guy running a company, and I was going in to do commentating and going into actually coaching the NBA, and I already had lined up to be assistant coach. And a guy approached me as a company and said, I was doing a radio show, and he said, I'd love to have your drive and everything inside. I came in and looked at his books enough. I learned about business school. I couldn't tell you how to read a balance sheet real well then, but I realized he couldn't pay me. So I said, here's the point. And it was a great technology, right? If anybody's ever had their face put 3D inside of glass, it's Disney and all that stuff. That was a company I partnered with to build in 23 countries and so forth. And the reality was, Max, I worked 6 months for free, right? Hey, I needed a paycheck like everybody else, but I did that to get in there and earn and show what I could do. But really, I was there to learn how to do it, how to run the FedEx machine, how to do it. And my dad always taught me that. It's really very, very basic. It's like, you want to be a good shooter. Well, you got to shoot 1,000 shots a day. There's no round about it, right? So, yeah. And let me tell you something about Jerome. And I think his camera, he's still there. Jerome did at Pro Source exactly, and I know he'd say this, exactly what he's telling you, right? Because he would come in here and hang out. And the thing, my wife and I are like, we're friends and stuff. I'm like, Jerome's taking this and taking it to a new level because he gets it, right? And so, I mean, and I think it's very important to be humble and ask questions. I remember speaking in front of a group of the wealthiest oil guys in Texas, and Hakeem Olajuwon didn't take the $50,000 speaking engagement, so I took it for $5. But here was the thing: the question they asked me, the biggest question they started off, they said, the guy is one of the wealthiest guys in the room, billionaire, and he stands up and says to me, they stood up at the tables. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to answer these questions. The guy said, and he said, what do you eat for breakfast? And I think it taught me a lesson, right? Like people look at you as an athlete and they want that, right? It doesn't matter about the money. They want that fame. They want to know what it took to get there. And I just, humbly asked him questions afterwards. After he said that, of course, I answered the question, but I asked him, how do you run your business? How do you do those things, right? If you just humble yourself, people are going to do that. And I think that, there was a survey that came out which contributes to stress and health and wellness, that said that a graduate now believes that they can accomplish the wealth of their parents in 3 years, right? What type of pressure is that? Compared to in the 87, 89, they'd say 20 years, right? So there's a lot of pressure out there. I would say humble yourself. Start, Max, congratulations, because you play sports at any college level. That's incredible. And you're probably sitting there saying, I'm not a Jerome Williams. Well, that's what I always said. I'm not Charles Barkley. I'm not Michael Jordan. But Jerome will tell you today, we run in some circles with some very well-known players, and they respect us because we have work ethic, ultimately.
Right.
And so that's what I'd say. Put that work ethic, humble yourself, get a chance to volunteer anywhere. You may be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for a while, but brother, it's worth it. I'm telling you, because that knowledge is priceless.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Max, that was a great question. And by the way, so we need to know then, what's your nickname?
My nickname?
Yeah.
Mad Max. Kind of like Jerome. I was a defender. I was always the junkyard dog too. So I remember that. Damon was who gave me that. So
Matt, I'm gonna send you a hat because I branded for my Mad Max. So I got a
Mad Max. Yeah, I'll connect with you, Doug. Yeah, thank you guys for that. But I appreciate that. Yeah, no, that was great.
Your brand.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in, Max. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, so that was great. So listen, we got just a couple more questions, then we're going to go back to the tables if that's cool. Some people are saying they want a nickname or something, but I'm going to ask one more question real fast. And Austin, if you don't mind, we're running short on time to bring you in, but with the new announcement of the EA Sports, the college football game coming back, do you think that players with more marketability, like the star quarterback from the game, should they be paid higher than, let's say, the backup punter and that sort of thing? I mean, do they deserve to be paid more? Should they be paid more? Does everybody get the same cut? What do you guys think?
You're on.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's
Obviously, right. I mean, I'm gonna let Ulish speak on football, but before he does, so he doesn't get in any trouble as a basketball player, we can recognize football in the various positions to have a sort of intrinsic value as higher than another. So if I look at a quarterback and all the decisions that the quarterback has to evaluate, from the line of scrimmage to the plays to the type of defense they could potentially be in, and the reacting of that position, intrinsically that position is of a high value. A running back that has to improvise on a play, a wide receiver who has to adjust his route. These are positions that obviously, that are very high in value. The offensive tackle that protects the quarterback's blind side, that in the NFL is a huge position. The tight end position, being versatile, coming off the line of scrimmage and being able to block and catch and run. Those are, the special teams, being able to catch that, and kickoff return and punt return. These are all positions that I feel like, just from the outside looking in, have an intrinsic value that is higher than certain other positions just by what they are and what they hold. But does that mean that you can't have a defensive tackle, a defensive end, a linebacker who has a great value? Absolutely. Because we've seen players that have come in and changed the game from those unique spots on the field. Cornerback as well. I mean, I remember my favorite player was, Daryl. Daryl from Redskins, the cornerback.
Joe Green.
Daryl Green.
Exactly. Daryl Green, one of the fastest human beings on the planet. So at the end of the day, yes, I'm enthusiastic to see that CFB game come back out. Doug, I still haven't gotten my check from the Final Four NCAA video game that came out with Ed O'Bannon on the front cover, which Ed, God bless his soul, shout out to him, who went to court and got all the bullets thrown at him for even bringing it up that college athletes should be paid for being in a video game. So, yeah, there's definitely a different value on certain positions in football, but in basketball, in college sports, yeah, the starting lineup. If you're a starter, you should be paid accordingly.
Okay, great.
I mean, what I learned in Pittsburgh is there was a saying in the locker room. The event will close in 2 minutes.
Hang on.
What I learned in the locker room is you treat everybody fair, but not the same. And so at the end of the day, it's a slippery slope because, hey, it's a team sport theoretically, but hey, some of these guys have more face recognition, if you will. But at the end of the day, if you ain't an offensive lineman, you ain't. So with the offensive lineman.
All right. Well, gentlemen, you guys have been fantastic. And look, all of you have incredible insight, and we're going to try to have you jump back in again for another event soon where we can talk, as you were saying, Doug, about some of the technological background of a lot of this that's going on. But look, once again, this is an incredible time because we're all about to be experiencing the ability for all athletes, and especially the younger ones, to benefit from their name, image, likeness, and hopefully a lot greater. So thanks for being here. You guys are fantastic guests. I hope you've enjoyed the club room itself here and it's the ability to network and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what's been your reaction so far?
Oh, I think it's great. I mean, I was actually, the people I was at table 5 or whatever, and everybody that was in there, super nice. I said it was the first time in there, but it was a great experience. I look forward to meeting more people. I know everybody's schedules, I'm sure, are pretty full, but I also, we put our contact information out there to be able to contact us. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity to, meet everybody in the room that has interest. And, we're into hearing what other people are doing as well, because we love partnering. We love partnering with others. It's not like, we have all the knowledge and wisdom that it takes here. We just feel we have a great expertise and some great technologies we're bringing forward. But it's great. No, it's been a great experience. So we appreciate people tuning in, and we're looking forward to working with some of the conversations I had already in the rooms. So we're thankful for that.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate it. Well, look, let's go jump back to the tables for a few minutes and carry on with this. Don't forget to register if possible, if you're able to learn to be an even better networker than you already are, to Thursday's event at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, and all that stuff. So unless you all feel that you're perfect networkers, but if you're not and you want to learn some stuff, I'd be happy to share it with you. And we'll have another great networking session just like this. You each had fantastic advice. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for being here, gentlemen. And let's jump back to the room.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mark. This is awesome.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug. Thanks for being part of the Clubroom event today. It's been great having you on board. Check out all the resources available to the Win Again Academy. Go to the website, markmoyer.com, and you'll see all the previous events, podcast episodes, articles, and so much more. Check it out. And look, if you're an athlete, if you're an entrepreneur and a founder, or an executive looking to elevate your game and really take your business and your career to a whole new level, consider becoming a Win Again Academy member. We'd love to have you on board because you get access 24/7 to an incredible Slack community of other members where you can really elevate your network and meet some really impressive people. You'll also get a personalized copy of my book, Win Again, the job search handbook for athletes and non-athletes looking to really transform their life and their career. You'll also get seamless entry into the Clubroom events. And these events are absolutely amazing. Table-to-table networking, conversations with everybody at your own pace. It really is fun, but also incredibly great for your network. You've got to check those out. You'll also get discounts to future VIP events that we've got lined up. So consider joining, be a part of this community, be a part of that Slack channel. Come to these events. You'll meet some amazing people. Go to markmoyer.com/join-today and take advantage of all the things that you have to offer for an incredibly, incredibly great price. Check it out. We'd love to see you there, and see you in the Clubroom soon. Thanks.